Well, hi, my name is Tim Knighton. I'm currently the Chief Digital Officer at the Department for Business Innovation and Skills, and thank you for taking the time to have a look at this video when I should talk a bit about the role that I do, the role of government actually in digital and technology, and of course a bit about the department, which is perhaps where I'll start. So the Department for Innovation and Skills is an interesting department in government. The core department itself is probably about 2,500 people, primarily around policy making. But the department, in terms of its breadth, is absolutely massive, and we have within the department some of the best known brands actually probably within government. So these include organisations such as the Met Office, Ordnance Survey, Companies House, Insolvency Service, and on the educational side we have the Schools Funding Agency, the Student Loan Company, and we're also responsible for the research councils in the UK. So a very broad stretch in terms of what the department is actually responsible for. There will be a separate video that we'll put up on the site where we'll have some colleagues from the department talking more specifically about what we do, and indeed some comment from consumers of our services as well. The next thing I'd like to just talk about a bit is the role of digital and technology more widely actually across government. In the last 4 years we've actually seen an absolute sea change. So back in 2010, when the current administration came in, they commissioned a report from Martha Lane Fox. And she recommended two key things. The first one was that actually the UK government should create a single domain, a single website domain for all of the websites currently then across government, of which, as you can imagine, there were an absolute multitude, covering not just the major departments of state, but all, or many, a couple of hundred actually, arm's length bodies across government, all the various agencies and so on. So we now have a single domain called gov.uk. I don't know if you ever look at it. I would recommend that you do. And it's actually, I'm pleased to say, actually won design awards for the way it's been put together, and indeed is now managed. The second key thing that Martha Lane Fox recommended was that we should create at the centre of government an organisation to look after digital and technology, which has become the Government Digital Service. This has meant that the how we think about doing technology in government has actually been changed radically over the course of the last few years. So we're now taking a much more integrated look at what we do in terms of all our services and our technology. We have very clear service standards which have been put together by the Government Digital Service, and all this is freely available and transparent on the gov.uk website. And they are about very much to create digital services for citizens, for organisations from the UK government that are as good as anything that you can find in the private sector, and indeed anything that you can find anywhere in the world. So that's the aspiration that collectively all of us working in digital technology across government have been setting ourselves. So we've seen this sea change, and in doing that we've really taken on a number of key decisions in terms of how digital and technology is being deployed. I guess one of the first key things that has been recognised is that over a number of years, government lost a lot of technical capability. And in a world, a digital world, that actually we're now all living in, and the increasing expectations indeed of all of our citizens and organisations that want to use government services, it's vital that government has, within the civil service itself, a core competence of digital and technology skills. And under the leadership of Government Digital Service and colleagues across departments across government, that's what we've been working to establish over the last few years. And we're making some really steady progress in respect of that. So growing our capability, our internal capability, has been absolutely critical, recognising that it's important we own the designs around what we do. We're also very heavily promoting the use of small suppliers as well as large suppliers. So it's really about having a mixed economy in service provision. So the days of just completely outsourcing stuff to large systems integrators have now gone. There is a place very much in our mixed economy for using all sorts of different suppliers, but it's critical we have the capability inside a government to design and manage such services effectively. So those things have been absolutely critical to the development of what we're doing in government more widely. It's also true to say, I think, that in terms of how we are working across government now, we're working much more collaboratively. And in many ways, in terms of digital and technology, it's a bit more like actually a private sector group in what we're trying to actually achieve, in the sense of really trying to identify where we have common components that actually can be deployed in many different areas of government service. And in the autumn statement, this has now got a nice phrase around it, and it's called government as a platform. Something which the best in the private sector have been doing for many years, and something which we in government recognise in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness of what we want to deliver is now a key component and a key strategy for us over the next Parliament and probably the Parliament thereafter. So that's a bit around the context of government as a whole, and certainly if you go on to the gov.uk website and look for GDS, there's all sorts of information that you can find in respect of the service standards, and the progress that's been made around a lot of the development in our services over the course of the last few years. So now moving on to talk a bit about the department itself and the role that I'm currently doing. So the department itself is actually a bit of a microcosm of government actually, because I mentioned a number of those brands that we have in the department, the Met Office, Ordnance Survey and so on and so forth. And we do have a lot of delivery agencies and partners within the department. In fact, there's around about 40. Some of them are quite small and some of them are large in the context of the well-known brands that I've mentioned. But in many ways, it's the same sort of thing. And we're trying to run the BIS family, as it were now, again, much more as you would run a private sector group. So we have interconnections across the family, not silos, interconnections, such that we can work together as technology leaders, digital leaders, in terms of both developing our services and the best practices around that, but also about the technology options that we have and how we deploy them. So the same concept of government as a platform, whether we're doing that across BIS, whether we're doing it across more widely in terms of government departments and agencies, is a key thrust and strategy that we're now seeking to put in place. So in my role, I'm effectively the head of profession for digital and technology across BIS and all of its partner organisations. So that's about making sure that we have effective digital service plans as we look to more and more, in line with the Civil Service Reform Plan and Digital by Default, have services that are accessible online for all that we do across the BIS family and more widely across government, of course. And that in developing those services, we're then looking to have a very clear idea of the technology roadmaps that we need to support the delivery of those services. And of course, with technology, and government is no different to the private sector in this regard, we naturally have a lot of legacy still lying around, both within BIS and outside of the department. And that's a key component of the technology roadmaps that we're now looking to put in place. And in devising these technology roadmaps, which typically we'll be looking at in a reasonable amount of detail in 2 to 3 years, we'll be looking for those opportunities to develop components which we can reuse, and indeed things which are already built, we can actually potentially look to redeploy those as renewal contracts where we currently have outsource arrangements come up, or indeed where there is now a new need in some of the agencies. So to encapsulate that again, a really directional activity in terms of making certain that we have a clear idea of the service we're going to develop and a clear idea of the technologies and where we are and what we're going to be deploying going forward. Now, of course, all of this is not done in isolation. Those aspirations around service delivery and technology are all lined up with the organisational strategies that exist, whether you're in the Met Office and what they're looking to do in terms of weather forecasting, or whether you are in Companies House and what they're seeking to do in terms of making certain that the UK is one of the easiest places in the world both to set up and register a company and then update those details as needed. So very much a strategic direction for us in terms of operating as a collective. As part of that, we have 2 key forums that we run on a very regular basis of both digital and technology leaders, working very closely with colleagues across all these partner organisations, and it is very much a collaborative effort that we're trying to achieve. I think perhaps now I'll give some personal reflections around how I've enjoyed my time doing what I'm doing and just looking ahead a bit to the future. My previous career, I came to government about 8 years ago, but up to that point I'd spent all of my career working in large multinational groups. So a lot of group experience and a lot of change experience as well. And there is no doubt that government is now one of the most exciting places to work, simply because of the scale of change that we're actually trying to put in place. The pace at which we're working in terms of delivering services, developing new services, and indeed the legacy technology that we're trying to replace, and indeed the working practices that we're adopting. Personally, I'm a big fan of the agile way of working. Not a slave to it, but a big fan of working at pace and very much based around user needs. And that is how we all work now inside the government, across our partner orgs inside of BIS, It's the way we do things. It's an exciting environment to work in because of that and that interaction with customers. I think the other great thing that I've seen in many of the agencies as I go around the country working with colleagues is how people are really starting to get close to customers. And so part of my career has been in a retail background, so it's something dear to my own heart. And to see people who are out there dealing with citizens and interacting with them as we are iterating service development and service design to ensure that the experience for users is the best it possibly can be and our services are simple to use and easy to access. It's really great to see how people are really getting a lot of motivation and indeed inspiration out of dealing with people on that. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's true to say we've still got a lot to do, and I think that's in many ways the excitement of the challenge actually. And I do think that over the course of the next two parliaments, there is the absolute potential for a sea change in what we do. The last 4 years has seen, I think, the basics go in with the creation of gov.uk and the completion of getting everything from government onto that particular domain. The creation of the Verify platform, which is around identity assurance, and also a performance platform, which the Government Digital Services have also created, which is about taking real-time information from real services and for agencies and departments to be using that information to actually understand, in the classic sense, where things are going a bit wrong, as we all know they can, and to keep iterating in terms of service improvement. So the real foundations for driving service improvement over the next parliament are really in place. And now it's the big play around platforms to actually really look to harmonise where we can, to work across platforms and actually take certain processes which cross many departments quite often and really work to lean those processes and then put the technology and service lines around that to ensure they are both cost effective, obviously important for government in terms of the current government finances and where we are, and important anyway, but also simpler and better and more sustainable for people who are using those particular services. So I think the opportunities coming in to this particular role that I'm doing at the moment are significant. In a number of our agencies we're looking to run transformation programs, and those broadly have got 5 sorts of components. First component is all around developing the online digital offering. Secondly, there's a whole raft of stuff around process re-engineering as we think about what we do and why we do it and really challenge ourselves around that. Technology replacement, that classic legacy thing. And then there's the whole behavioural side of this, because as you move into this world of focusing more on outcomes and service rather than processing, that has a real cultural impact. And allied to that, the skills and capability we need to deliver this type of change and then sustain it in a way which is very service focused. So I think a fantastic time to come in summary, and one that I'll miss when I leave, as I'm shortly retiring, but a fantastic opportunity for someone coming into the role. We now have a small team, a group team, just like you'd find in a multinational group in the centre of BIS. And our job at the centre is to make certain of a number of different things. Firstly, there's a technical side to this to make certain that we have technical skills. I have a chief technology officer who works for me, and we are looking at the technologies being deployed and ensuring they're fit for purpose, they align with the government strategy, and we're as lean and mean and reuse the components, that classic sort of thing really that you'd expect out of a group technology infrastructure. We're also looking at the transformation, seeking to support the transformational side of the agencies that are delivering for us within the department to ensure that we are radically challenging ourselves around what we do and how we do it. Clearly really important stuff, and really important to have a range of thinking styles in the teams that are looking to do that, and the team that work for me in respect to transformation are doing that. We also have, in the world of online digital, really important, we get the cybersecurity aspect right, and another member of the team working directly to me is responsible for security, both for the core department, the BIS family, and we have a slightly wider role across some other government departments as well. So it's a real interesting mix, small team, but one which is about drawing and coordinating across all of the partner orgs we have within the department. So I'll stop there. I hope you've enjoyed and picked up some nuances around the department and the role and where we're going in digital technology. And I hope you're interested, and look forward to receiving an application if you are. Thanks very much.